My full name is Sharon Biggs Pay. I was born in Spanish Fork, Utah, and in 1960, when I was a baby, we moved to New Mexico for a little bit, then up to Magna. My dad worked up there at Kennecott and then Hill Air Force Base. So then we moved from Magna. We didn't live there too long. We moved to American Fork, and that's where I remember growing up. I remember Magna maybe a little bit. Maybe I don't, just from pictures. I was the oldest, and then my brother Larry was born maybe a year and a half later. So we were both up there, and then we came to, so I'm not sure what year we came to American Fork. Maybe I was 3. Came to American Fork, and that's kind of where I grew up until age 10. American Fork was awesome. I loved American Fork. It wasn't as big as it is now. I remember I started kindergarten at Forbes Elementary, and I would walk back and forth to kindergarten. And so then I went to Shelley Elementary from 1st grade to 4th grade. And we had a great neighborhood. I remember walking down to the field, picking Potawatomis, a lot of friends. Anyway, I remember doing that, loving that. Our friends, we'd walk up to the ballpark, and then on the way home, I think it was just below the junior high where it is now, the American Fork Junior High. Was it still there? Anyway, they had a little store called Coleman's that we would buy penny candy, and you can't really buy penny candy anywhere now. But back then, we thought that was so cool. We'd buy our own little bag of penny candy and walk home, and just had a really good group of friends. Everything was great. And there was a big swing on our block too, that a few houses down, what was his name? He had built just this big, huge swing that we would all swing on and take turns swinging on. And I remember one time falling off of that, and I lost my breath. And that was kind of scary, but everybody was great and came home, and I got in trouble when I got home because I was late getting home. And I remember Mom making me go out and pick a willow off the willow tree in our backyard, and she kind of gave me a little reprimand for that. And I think when she found out why I was late, she changed her mind, but you know, a few things like that. My mom and dad, it seemed like they got along great, everything was good. And then when I was 10, I remember my mom saying, "We're going to Grandma's," and all of us packing up and leaving and going to Grandma's in Birdseye. And then I found out that my mom was leaving my dad. And I remember Dad coming up there and saying, "Please come home, don't leave," begging her to come home. So I have one sister and 2 brothers at that time. And my mom took my sister and we left. And then my 2 brothers stayed with my dad. So we left and moved up with my Grandma and Grandpa to Birdseye for a little bit, then down to Spanish Fork. Mom found a family that would rent to us so we didn't have to live with Grandma and Grandpa. And back then, I didn't understand.
My full name is Gregory Merrill Pay. I grew up in what used to be a small town here in Utah called Mapleton. It was a great experience. When I first started my life, we lived in Sandy, and we were there for 2-3 years. Then from there we came over, and Dad bought a home in 4 or 5 acres in Mapleton. Well, Mapleton, it was, as I said, a small town at the time. We had a farm, we had horses, which was awesome, I loved to ride the horses. We also had cows, we had pigs, didn't have chickens. We had a couple of dogs, or a dog that kind of overlapped, you know. But yeah, it was a good time there. Every spring and summer, we had a little problem where we would get water come into the house, and it filled our basement about 4 to 6 inches of water in the basement. Well, being a young boy, and I decided to be a little adventurous and started building boat. Then I had a couple of airplanes that had a little electric motor in them that would spin the propeller. I got the idea, let's make an airboat. So I pulled the airplanes apart, took the propellers, the motors out of them, and I started making airboat. And it was a good time. My sisters also lived down there in the water. Get out of, or before they climbed into bed, they would wipe their feet off with a towel and then climb into bed. The first time it happened, they were shocked to swing their feet out of bed and hit cold water. And it was cold, very cold. We all loved being there in Mapleton. It was just, people were really kind. They were lots of fun. We used to go up what they used to call the clay mines. It was a little place behind our house, through a couple of fields, probably 500 yards away. And it was basically just a bank that was exposed that was clay. That's why we called it the clay mines. And we'd go up there, we'd take a lunch and just spend the day up there. Me and my sisters, our friends, we all went up there all the time, and that was a lot of fun. Also, when the winter came, we had a sleigh riding hill. The fire department went up and they flattened out and smoothed out an old road that used to be there, but when it got washed out because of a flood, when we had heavy runoff, it would wash the road out. So they built another road up on the mountain. They built a sleigh riding hill. And that sleigh riding hill was awesome because it was about 1.5 miles long. They put banks in the turns and all this other stuff, a few dips, you know, and some areas were a little steeper so you could actually make a jump out of it. It was just so much fun. They strung lights down the trail or down the track, and they had a little generator shack about halfway down, and they would keep some lights on during the night until it ran out of gas, and then you're flying down.
Greg and I met at a movie theater. So I was living in American Fork with my roommate, Melissa. We wanted to go to a movie. There was one show she wanted to go to. I think she had mentioned, I think it was called Animal House or something. And I was like, I'm not really wanting to go to that movie. So we went, ended up going to Carillon Square, and it was a Clint Eastwood movie. It was Bronco Billy. I don't know, I was okay with that, but I wasn't real excited about the movie. So we go walking into the movie, and Melissa and I go down and sit down in our seats, and I hear this voice yelling, hey Sharon, what time is it? And I'm turning around, is this right? I'm turning around looking up, and there's Brian Leifson, a kid that I went to school with. And I'm like, there's a clock right behind you. I was kind of embarrassed, you know, and he's like going on and on. Well, what time is it? And then I think maybe Greg came in shortly after he was asking us, and they decided to come on down and sit by us, because Melissa and I were sitting down closer, and they came down to sit by us. And Melissa, when she saw Greg, she was like, ooh, so cute. I'm like, I don't want them to come sit by us. I went to school with Brian. He's a really nice guy, but it wasn't like a guy I wanted to date or anything. But Melissa just thought Greg was so awesome. So she says, have him come down. And I'm like, okay, you know. So they come down, and instead of me moving so Greg could sit by her, I didn't even think about it. Greg sat by me. How did we decide when to have children? I think at first Greg and I thought, when we have our first home, when we have this, when we have that. And then we just decided that we wanted to start our family. So we decided to go ahead and start our family and just see when they came, and it would all work out. So our first child was Tyler, and of course with your first child you're just so excited. And I remember not even being sure that it was time to go to the hospital and all of that stuff, but we figured that out, and he was beautiful. He was the most beautiful baby boy you'd ever seen. We loved him dearly. He was just an amazing, and he's always been such a good, amazing person. He's grown up to be just an amazing young man. He's very, has a big heart. He can do anything. He's artistic. He works for Orem City right now. He's very successful, and we just...
He has tremendous communication skills. He is able to talk so succinctly. He is so good with words, and that it is very comfortable, very easy to talk to. I think that's one of his biggest
gifts, a gift,
is communication.
Yeah, with that. And he's an art and a lot of things. But anyway, a couple years later, in '85, we had Jake, and the day I went into labor with Jake, we were moving into a duplex in Spanish Fork, and we were finishing moving, and I knew because of my experience with Tyler, my first one, that I wanted to wait to go have him. So anyway, we were moving in, but we had Jake, and Jake is just an amazing young man as well. And I thought he was the most perfect baby again. But I remember when Tyler came in the room when I had Jake, Tyler was just all of a sudden all grown up. And Jake was an adventure. He was curious, and Tyler would watch out for him, and because he would climb anything, find anything when he was young, and he remained being an loving adventure. And Jake too has a very big heart. He'd give you the shirt off his back. He served in the Marines for 10 years. He works for Just right now, and he's a great dad. Tyler is as well. They're just great kids. And then we had kind of a break. Like Jake and Tyler were born pretty close together. And then we had Nicole, our daughter Nicole, in 1988. Not too much longer, but about 3, almost 4 years later, we had Nicole, and we had our little girl. And that was a whole new experience, having our little girl. And Jake and Tyler were so excited to have a little sister. And they would just, I remember they'd just sit and watch her and dote over her. And
she has turned out to be such an amazing woman. And, well, little girl and woman. Great mother.
she lights up the room.
She also has a big heart. And, yeah, she's amazing. She really is. Takes a lot of the same, has a lot of the same traits as her mother.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but she was just so shy when she was little, and she just overcame so many things, and I don't know why I'm emotional right now. I held it together so good. Anyway, she is just so full of light, and well, they all are really, but great mom. She can do anything she sets her mind to, and the others do as well. And she had a rough go in junior high and high school a little bit, and through some things that weren't true, and she overcame and got through that, and she's just an amazing mom and amazing person. Yeah, she went through cosmetology. She graduated from Von Losey, and then she went to pharmacy tech and graduated there, and then she decided to stay home and be a mom, and they were able to do that. And I was blessed to have their first daughter come to my daycare for a while, and that was amazing. And then we had Austin in 1990. 2 years later. So Austin and Nicole were really close that way, like Jake and Tyler. And Austin, again, he's our youngest little boy, and he was perfect and amazing, and he's just the fun. All the Nicole and Jake and Tyler just doted over him, and they all say he was spoiled, that he got to do anything he wanted, and
So living in Mapleton, I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. My father had given me a pocket knife. It was a big pocket knife. In fact, I still have it. Big pocket knife about that big, and it had everything you could think of on it. A saw, a can opener, a bottle opener, screwdrivers, you know, and a spoon and a fork. And it had its own little leather pouch and a little strap that you'd snap on to cover, you know, to hold it in the pouch. Well, the snap wasn't super reliable, and I was wearing it since I was so proud of that pocket knife. And we were out playing in the alfalfa field with the neighbor kids, playing hide and seek. And we had played for, I don't know, an hour or so, and I noticed that my little harness was empty. So I didn't have my pocket knife. So I told all our friends and my sisters that I had lost it. So everybody just kind of fans out and is trying to find it, so on. And pretty soon the neighbor kids' mother called them home for dinner, and so Karen and Debbie helped me for a little while. We couldn't find it. Wasn't long before Debbie and Karen, they needed to go find something or do something. So here I was all alone. So I had heard that Heavenly Father could help you with these kind of things. So I gave it a try. I knelt down in the field and asked for his help to find it. and resumed hunting. And about 10 minutes after I had prayed, as I was walking through the field, or walking down a path that we had gone through, and sure enough, there it was. Picked it up, blew it off, knelt down and thanked the Lord for it. That's always stuck with me. He'll help you even with the smallest stuff, and shows to, proves to me and should prove to others that He's listening at all times, and He'll help you out. How about you? What was the first time you remember?
I don't know. There's a lot of different, music was a big part of it. Trying to think back, I remember up in Schofield, my grandma, Biggs, up in Schofield, she used to always sing, Jesus loves me, this I know. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is silly.
It's near and dear to your heart.
And that's a special memory that I felt loved, that she loved me. And then later on, there's been many times that music just touches my soul. But I'm trying to think of a real specific. Grandma Siemens, up in Birdside, there were many different things that happened up there that I would just remember saying, thank you, thank you. But I think one of the hard times for me was as a teenager, all the different changes, and living in Orem was really hard for me at that time. I wanted to finish high school, and I finally got to, which was fine, but I remember a couple specific times just going up on the roof of the house in Orem. This is silly, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Whew.